Meet Bernard Madoff, founder of a Wall Street firm, former chairman of NASDAQ, one of the largest stock exchanges on earth. A man so respected, so exclusive, that being rejected by his investment fund was considered a status symbol among the ultra-wealthy. For nearly 40 years, Bernie Madoff was one of the most admired men in American finance. He was also running the single largest fraud in human history, right under everyone's nose. December 10th, 2008. A Manhattan penthouse. Bernie Madoff calls his two sons into his office. They think it's about year-end bonuses. Instead, their father tells them the truth for the first time in his life. His investment business, the one that made their family hundreds of millions of dollars, the one that funded yachts and mansions and their entire identity, was never real. In his own words, it's all one big lie. His sons don't sleep that night. By morning, they've called a lawyer. By the next afternoon, they've turned in their own father to the FBI. 24 hours later, federal agents are knocking on Bernie Madoff's door. What they uncover over the following months isn't just a scandal. It's a $64.8 billion black hole. A fraud so massive, so long-running, that would wipe out life savings, shut down charities, and end in at least 4 suicides connected to the fallout. This is the story of how one man fooled Wall Street, the SEC, and the entire world for almost 40 years. Stay with me, because the way he pulled it off is almost too simple to believe. Bernie Madoff started small. In 1960, he founded Bernard L. Madoff Investment Securities with a few $1,000s saved from lifeguarding and installing sprinkler systems. But Madoff was sharp, and he was early. He became one of the pioneers of electronic stock trading, the technology that would eventually become the backbone of NASDAQ itself. By the early 1980s, his firm was a genuine Wall Street powerhouse, one of the largest market makers in the country. And then came the part that made him untouchable. In 1990, he became chairman of NASDAQ. Not a fraudster running a back-alley scam. The chairman of one of the biggest stock exchanges on the planet. This is the detail you need to understand before anything else. Here's how the scheme actually worked, and it is deceptively, almost insultingly simple. Investors handed Madoff their money, believing he would invest it using a sophisticated strategy he called a split-strike conversion. He never invested a single dollar of it. Instead, the money went straight into one account. When an existing investor wanted to withdraw funds or cash out their profits, Madoff simply paid them using money that had just come in from newer investors. The investor sees the withdrawal land in their account. They believe their investment genuinely grew. They tell their friends. Their friends invest, and the cycle repeats. As long as new money keeps flowing in faster than people cash out. No real profits were ever generated. Not 1 cent. It was structurally the oldest trick in the world of fraud, a Ponzi scheme, except run by a former NASDAQ chairman, with the packaging of a legitimate Wall Street brokerage wrapped around it. This is the part that should genuinely disturb you. Because Madoff wasn't sloppy. He was a master of psychology. He promised 10 to 12% annual returns. Steady, believable, never spectacular. He deliberately avoided the flashy 40 and 50% numbers that scream too good to be true. His genius was making the lie feel boring, feel safe. Even during market crashes, 2000, 2001, 2002, when the rest of Wall Street was bleeding, Madoff's investors somehow, quietly, kept making money. Behind the scenes, his firm was producing thousands of pages of completely fabricated documents, fake account statements, fake trading records, fake profit reports, fake trade confirmations, every single month, every single year for decades. All of it printed to look exactly like the real thing. And then there was the reputation. His exclusivity became the ultimate marketing tool. Getting into Madoff's fund wasn't something you asked for. It was something you were invited into. People weren't just investing. They were buying status. And when the man vetting you used to run NASDAQ, who on Wall Street was going to question his math? Almost everyone fell for it. Billionaires, international banks, universities, pension funds, charitable foundations supporting medical research. If this story is genuinely blowing your mind right now, hit that like button. Subscribe to Giant Theft if you want more deep dives into history's biggest scams, frauds, and cons. And drop a comment below. Would you have spotted the warning signs? Now, let's talk about how it all came crashing down. A scheme like this only survives one way. New money has to keep coming in faster than old money goes out. In 2008, that stopped. The global financial crisis hit, and panicked investors across every market scrambled to pull their cash out to cover losses elsewhere. Between September and December of that year, Madoff's own clients requested roughly $7 billion in withdrawals. He didn't have it. He never had it. There were no investments to liquidate because there had never been any real investments in the first place. According to the FBI, when investigators finally looked at his accounts, against roughly $7 billion in requested withdrawals, there was only around $300 million sitting in the bank. The money wasn't hidden somewhere clever. It was simply gone, spent paid out to earlier investors, absorbed into decades of a lie that had finally run out of new victims to feed it. For the first time in almost 40 years, Bernie Madoff had nowhere left to hide. Which brings us back to that office, December 10th, 2008. Madoff tells his sons the truth. They report him within hours. On December 11th, FBI agents arrest him at his Manhattan apartment. When asked if there was any innocent explanation for what he'd done, Madoff reportedly said there was none. In 2009, he pleaded guilty to 11 federal felonies: securities fraud, investment advisor fraud, wire fraud, and theft from employee benefit plans. The judge gave him the maximum practical sentence available, 150 years in federal prison. Several members of his firm were eventually convicted for their role in keeping the fraud running behind scenes. Madoff may have been the face of the lie, but he wasn't the only hand building it. In the years since the collapse, court-appointed trustees have run one of the most relentless financial recovery efforts in history. As of the most recent figures, more than $19 billion has now been recovered and returned to Madoff's victims, meaning many of them have gotten back nearly everything they originally invested. For a fraud of this size, the recovery rate is almost unheard of. Bernie Madoff himself never got to see any of it play out from the outside. He died in federal prison on April 14, 2021, at the age of 82. Having spent the final 12 years of his life exactly where the judge sent him. If this story hit you the way it hit us putting it together, make sure you're subscribed to Giant Theft. We cover the biggest frauds, scandals, and cons in history, and trust us, this one isn't even the most shocking. Let us know in the comments. What's the one red flag you'd never ignore? We'll see you in the next one.